Kia ora koutou, no mai haere mai. Councillor Newman, would you care to our meeting?
Mai e te pai maunga raro ki te tai, mai te awatonga raro ki te awaraki. Tēnei te hapori, awhi ai e taratahi, whanau, hare mai te toki, homie huie tai.
Thank you. Kia ora, thank you for that. Are there any apologies?
I've received an apology from Rautaki.
Marama Fox, thank you. I'll move those apologies be accepted. Councillor Cretney, Councillor Gallen, seconding. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Thank you. Conflicts of interest, any declarations to be made?
Only that I live on Taverner Street.
There are none. Noted. Public forum, there is no one speaking from the public forum today. We've had notification of? No. And youth council views, no representatives. I've received notice that we have two late items for introduction for business, which will require resolution. See, Dale, you want to introduce it?
Thank you, Your Worship. The two items, the first one is 7.12, and that's Community Grants Committee delegations. The reason for this being a late item today is simply timing. The policy needs some amendment work and needs to be done prior to the round opening in June. So it's a timing issue. Can't wait for 6 weeks till the next meeting. And the second one is an update on future for local government. Again, this is timing for all of the Wairarapa councils with their meeting schedules to be able to present and discuss in public and make the appointments in the next couple of weeks. So again, both of those are timing related, hence the reason they're on our table today.
Are there any questions, Councillor? Anything you wish to add to? Nothing. So can I ask you, note, we will move a resolution, but paper one, which is the community grants paper, please, can you please annotate that as 7.12? And paper two, can you please annotate that as 7.13? Could I have someone move? Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Campbell. Those papers be introduced. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Dale. Right, so moving straight on to item 6.1 minutes. Item 6.1 minutes of the ordinary council meeting, which we all have. Take as read. Does someone like to move that those are through an accurate record? Councillor Ayling and Councillor Dalla seconded. Are there any questions or any comments? All in favour? Aye. Aye. Against? Motion's carried. Thank you. Moving to item 7.1. We have correspondence.
So if you'd like me to introduce it.
Yes, please.
Kia ora, everyone. So as you may recall, a little while ago, Council instructed me to write to the Department of Conservation about the state of Carter's Reserve and in particular some of the walkways, the overgrown vegetation and blackberry and access via the current driveway. So we did that and I've attached to this correspondence section in the report both my letter to the Department of Conservation and their response. So you can take what you read from that. One thing I would add to this paper that appears to have become apparent is that there may be some challenges with myrtle rust in the area. So the Department of Conservation are meeting on site with Hunurangi representatives to look at the potential invasion of myrtle rust in that area, particularly on the Manukau. So they will figure out a plan on what they want to do with that if it is in fact myrtle rust in that area. which is a bit of a concern for that reserve.
When might they be able to give us an indication?
I need to get an update from so at this stage I haven't heard. I'll get our Parks and Reserves team to get across it as well.
Yeah, just a question, just seeing that the reference was to the Wairarapa District Office. Is that, what sort of relationship do we have? Because this letter went directly to the highest possible and they dropped down to say, well, the district office runs it and they've checked it and everything is okay. Have we got a relationship with that district office?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. So our Parks and Reserves team have a good relationship with the district office. My reading of their response was funding. They just don't have enough money and people to get around and do what we need to do.
Any other questions for this CE? Councillor Cretney.
More to add a bit of discussion.
Yeah.
Just in relation to Jeff's letter, I want to thank you for the letter you did send them. I thought it was, you really pointed out the issues, and I was very disappointed with their response that pretty well everything you highlighted, they agree that there was an issue, but they said that it fell under their health and safety and it was fine, which is a little bit concerning. But more the fact that the creepers and the blackberry and so forth, which is really causing concern, was not mentioned in their letter at all. So I have a little bit of concern about their reply that they've given us and how long it might take for them to actually engage in the process. I know you've mentioned funding, but if this is left another 12 months, say, who's to say how much more of Carter's Reserve is going to be smothered in creepers and blackberry and so forth. So
with the growth that we're experiencing.
I'd like to just comment. We are very grateful for the Friends of Carter Reserve Society who do an awful lot of work in that particular reserve, and you know it would be a lot worse without.
But unless we're prepared to spend money and do it ourselves, then we have to leave it with DOC and they have to own the consequences of inaction.
I think you just take it as read, Jeff, that everybody endorses your letter. Everybody's grateful for the way in which you've put it so clearly. Somewhat disappointed by the Department of Conservation's response. Buck passing down is always interesting. And funding is always a challenge, but I know they got a massive increase in their funding just a couple of years ago, so that confuses me. But I think it's one we just keep a watch and shoot on, but we'll talk to the Hiranui, and maybe it's one of those tasks where the Rangatahi and the district might want to lean in and assist as part of their involvement strategy and help Hiranui and help the Friends of Carter Reserve and see them to build a dock. Yeah, okay. Righty, did someone
See the report?
sorry?
Received.
Yes, someone moved that we receive the correspondence. Thank you, Councillor Newman, seconded by Councillor Gallen. All in favour? Aye. Yes, motion's carried. Thank you. So we have go straight to 7.2, 1.2.
7.2.
7.2, correct. Who's speaking to that? You?
So if you're okay, I'll allow
Head down. Peripheral
Kelly to
vision's
speak to
following today.
Kia ora, everybody. So this is our standard quarterly financial report to council. You'll see we're largely tracking on budget. The areas where we're not are pretty much the same as the last financial report. So additional maintenance expenditure on roads, some of the timing with grants, development contributions are ahead of budget. So those reasons were raised in the last report as well. I'll take the report as read and I'm happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions? I think it's pretty straight. Councillor Laurence.
Just in terms of the grants, I think we talked about this last time, but you've made a comment in here that some of them may in fact carry over into the next financial year. Can you just enlighten us again as to those grants are and who's supposed to be paying us?
Yeah, sure. So one of the grants that may carry over is one for the Better Off funding for the 3 waters. So we are receiving bits of the grant, but the timing of when we get it kind of, I think, depends on when we do the work as well and make the claim. So one of the grants we have received recently is the MFE funding for the Weybridge. So that one, we've been waiting for that one to come. We have received that one. At the moment, we do our phasing for grants just over the whole year, but that's not really how grants work. But there aren't any that we were expecting to get that will drop off if we don't manage to claim them this financial year.
Any other questions?
Kelly, just around the risk, you've mentioned no risk identified in the considerations, but is there a risk if we have another storm event in tomorrow or next week that our budget for stormwater and transport could potentially blow out?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There's always unknowns. Our budgets are set on best information at the time, and things do happen during the year that may alter that. So if we were to have another significant weather effect, that would definitely impact our budget. So the next annual plan year, we've already had to increase budgets for the work we expect to do for emergency works on roading, and we would have to have a look at that again.
Thank you.
One way of mitigating those risks is prioritising the works that we do focus on, and we have been doing that to date. So Road Road and Glenburn Road, etc., have been taking a lot of the damage so far. So, we prioritise those roads because they are accessed for Flat Point residents and Glenburn residents. We may have to, if we experience more damage, consider what our priorities may be and how much we repair and how far we go with those repairs. But at this stage, we're not there yet.
Straightforward. Okay, so let someone move that we receive the report first. Councillor Cherry-Campbell, second to Councillor Cretney, all in favour? Aye. Yes, motion's carried. Delegates responsibility of the Community Grant Committee to amend and adopt the finance. Sorry,
That one.
sorry.
No, that's
Sorry.
7.12. It's.
Oh, what am I in a hurry to finish?
You're in a hurry. You're at the back of the agenda. I'll just whip these away from you at the moment,
Sorry.
and we stick to the pack because these ones will come
I had
right
that
at the end.
one. Right in. Okay, so jumping through to that. Page 31.
Thank you.
That's it?
Yep. So the recommendation on page 27 is that council receives the report.
Got you now. Yeah. Page 27. Breathe amongst yourself briefly. Okay, that's all. So pass that resolution. Moving forward. 7.3.
31.
Adoption of the Wairarapa Youth Strategy to Rautaki, Rangatahi or Wairarapa. Stand up.
Kia ora, everybody. Thank you. So I'm pleased to present the draft of the Wairarapa Rangatahi strategy. So this has been a piece of work that has been in development since early 2021. So previously, Masterton and Carterton district councils have had a strategy in place, and for us, this is a review, and it was an opportunity to in South Wairarapa at the same time and make it a Wairarapa-wide strategy. So we have undertaken this strategy work with young people involved throughout the process. We have consulted, we have engaged with, and we've spoken to about 1,300 rangatahi over this period. 362 of those were Carterton residents, and we have developed the draft strategy. So one of the things that we haven't done is the implementation plan, and that was because we wanted to make that a really Carterton focused implementation plan, working with our youth development coordinator, agencies across Carterton, the schools across Carterton, and the young people themselves. So that'll just be a work in progress as things go ahead. Yeah, open for questions.
Just got one.
Are there any?
Sorry, Glenda. Bottom of page 31, the strategy was being considered for adoption by SWDC on the 5th of April. Did they adopt?
Yes, both the other two councils.
Have adopted it?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any?
I just have a question about our youth council. I see it's mentioned in there the importance of the youth council. Do we have one?
We do.
Okay.
So what's happened is after our previous staff member resigned, we haven't been able to maintain the relationship with the youth council. Megan is our new youth development coordinator. She started 2 weeks ago. So she's in the process of re-engaging with the youth council, bringing them back up to speed, and we'll start working with them and working with them through this process as well. So you'll start to see the youth voice and the youth views coming back into council meetings, hopefully in the next couple of meetings. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I like.
Continue.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Go.
My only question, Glenda, was around the age bracket. I feel like youth ends at 18. What's the reasoning behind having it up to 24-year-old?
Yeah, so the definition of a young person is 12 to 24. I think we're taking that quite loosely because a lot of the young people I think that we'll be looking at working with in Carterton are on the younger side of that. There's a few areas that are probably going down to 10. So we're open to go to kind of like 10 to 24. The older young people, the 18 pluses, it's really hard to get them to engage. So that was one of the risks that we noticed in the development of this strategy, being able to engage with that older population. It's just hard to reach them. So it's flexible.
Yeah.
Any other questions? So where does that definition of youth from out to 24 come from? Is that
Government.
Ministry,
Is that
government, yeah.
Ministry of Youth Affairs?
Yeah.
Do we find whether or not those young adults are more dominating in terms of their views and opinions than the 10 and 13-year-olds?
In my previous life, working with young people, it's always been quite a mix as well. So there is the older ones that have those dominating views, but they also are there to support and guide those younger ones. So it's quite a cool process in that space. Yeah.
Interesting. Are there any other questions? Okay, can we have someone move that to?
Sorry, can I just make a comment?
Yeah.
Firstly, I like the language that comes through this. Like it's not just, I've read a number of youth projects, and often the language is about we want, we expect. In this, a lot of the language is they want to be involved in the decision making, they want to contribute and participate. So coming back to the point around youth council, we need to make sure that they've got a real platform to do that.
Yeah.
And secondly, around the ages, I mean, just talking to other community groups and schools and police and so forth, it seems as though the cohort that is on everyone's radar but nobody's responsibility is the 8 to 14-year-olds. And so if that's the case, is this not a golden opportunity to maybe go even lower than 10 and actually stretch that cohort and start involving them early around what they expect from a community, and again, how they can be responsible members of a community, like particularly around some of the upgrades that we're proposing and things like that.
Yeah.
I just think that 8 to 14-year age group seems to be rearing its head in all the wrong places.
Yeah.
Here's an opportunity to involve them in some of the right places. Is that possible?
100% agree, and that's why we wanted to wait with the implementation and get a group of the agencies and the community groups together with young people and the council to work on the implementation plan.
Great,
Yeah.
awesome, thank you.
That's Ayling.
Yeah, I found it kind of confusing when I was reading it. The age thing seems almost like we're disenfranchising young people. I find when we have 18 to 24-year-olds who are adults and who are going to be in court as adults, not as youth, I think there's a risk that we are sort of keeping them in that baby stage a bit too long. And I think maybe you're right that there should be a younger group of kids included in this, but I just don't see why we'd have anyone over at least 21 part of the youth strategies. I understand that we want them to be engaged in society and that we want them to do workforce or training,
but I feel like calling them youth and having them as a youth strategy seems
It's a hangover with
strange.
MSD and most government departments. They have this school leaver sort of 17, 18 to 24, like Mayor's Task Force for Jobs. That's the cohort around supporting young people into work. It caps it at 24.
As Glenda actually pointed out when she was presenting the report to us, she said it was quite difficult to engage with the 18 to plus age group anyway. So I think if you're concerned that the 18 plus are heavily weighting any decisions that are being made in relation to this, I think that's unfounded. I think most of the, and correct me if I am wrong, Glenda, but I think most of the participants have been in those early mid-teens, sort of, or pre-teen, mid-teens.
Yeah, I don't think, we did one session with UCOL, which would have got that older one, but it was quite hard to engage with them as well, even on campus at UCOL. So the schools, the community groups, and the younger ones are pretty much what is based on this strategy. That's right, Bex. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah.
Strategy.
Yeah, look,
I like that all the councils have got
Yeah.
buy-in. I think that's really important. I just question the age.
I don't think you're alone, Councillor. I think there's a mix and mash of, if we're talking about if the age of criminal responsibility is 18, if a young person gets discharged by MSD or Rangatahi out of foster care onto the street on their own because they are considered adults. If we're consulting with kids who are 23, 24 going to a nightclub one night, are they really interested in the needs of a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, unless it's their brother, sister? I think strategy is necessary. I think reading through it, like all of you're in the heads in the same space, but I think there's a lot more discussion to be had around that. And I don't doubt that a change in government might change legislation and put it back down to the 18 mark, and we'll be adjusting this paper accordingly. So I think we have a paper on table and it's been well worked through, and it's up to us as council to make a decision. So I'm going to ask if someone wants to receive the report. Move. Councillor Newman, second by the Deputy Mayor. All in favour? Aye. Motion's carried. Thank you. I think we'll tick through the rest of them. Notes that Carterton, Marston, South Wairarapa Council have agreed to develop a combined regional strategy as part of. Notes that, can I take all of those 2, 3 and 4 as one and have someone move that, please? Councillor Cretney, seconded by Councillor the Deputy Mayor. All in favour? Against? Motion's carried. And moving that we adopt the Wairarapa Youth Strategy. Councillor Cherry-Campbell, second by Councillor Newman. All in favour? Aye. Anyone against? One against. Councillor Ayling. Thank you. Motion's carried. Noted. Do you wish to re-record it, or? Yes, she's given that indication. 7.3, moving to 7.4.
Thank you, Your Worship, the Mayor. Councillors, the paper is very self-explanatory. Under the Dog Control Act, fees are set by resolution, but there is a requirement to advertise in 1 month prior to the fees kicking in, which is 1st of July. That's why councils don't rely on the annual plan adoption process when setting the animal control fees. What you'll see that we have done this year, we have increased the fees just in line with what we need to be meeting our funding policies. We have also tried to split out some additional fees to make it very, very clear that if we were to, for example, pick up an animal that was requiring vet treatment, that it's actually quite clear that the cost of vet treatment or any supplementary feeding associated with that is at the actual cost, should we be able to find where the owners are, because with councils you do have difficulties charging fees if they're not clearly set out in a fee structure. The one really cool thing that we are doing is we are introducing the over 65 canine companion. We're increasing our urban spayed neuter fees to 85, and then we are keeping the over 65 canine companion at 75, which was the previous fee structure. This does at this stage only apply to the urban owners, because the rural dog owners get a reasonable discount regardless of whether the dogs are entire or de-sexed anyway. So we think that's quite a neat initiative for our council to do, and it also is very much in line with our positive ageing strategy as well. So it's one of those things that we can say we're recognising we've got the strategy, how are we implementing it? So pleased about that. You'll see later on within the Chief Executive Officer's report, I have put one of the posters that will be going out doing some advertising with those permanent life of the dog tags. So that has been touched in the Chief Executive Officer's report.
Beg the indulgence of the meeting after questions. Right. Let's take questions first.
I'm not going to play the jingle. I will take questions, and we do have a really amazing radio jingle. But I can play.
I have a question. Would we be able to hear the radio jingle?
Might regret that. You won't be able to unhear it, you know that.
Okay.
I might play that once we get through the report if the elected members would like to hear it.
Are there any questions?
Just one, and it's just kind of a procedural thing. We did have this discussion around in terms of the annual plan, and we these fees and charges. So
But we have to adopt this and it has to be in place before the annual plan adoption. So this paper normally comes to council a month before the adoption of the annual plan.
Yeah.
It's in line with the annual plan, but we have to approve it first.
Councillor Ayling.
I just have one question around the impounding fees. They all looked good, I thought, except the third and subsequent impounding of dogs. I wonder if you want a stronger disincentive than the 250 suggested.
It's not often we get that dog impounded by the third time. You'll generally find that if they're going to be problem animals that end up in the pound, the owners might have surrendered them to council, or we've had them in long enough that we can look at a rehoming structure.
Okay.
We have increased all those impounding fees just to cover the costs and the work that we need to do with all the exercise with them. If elected members do want to increase it, that's absolutely fine, or we could see how it goes this year and be very conscious of making a note of how many times we have a dog impounded for the third time, and maybe have that discussion along with the long-term plan if you'd like.
Sounds good.
Councillor Newman.
Question around dogs classified as dangerous.
Yes.
Are they a lot more work for us as a council? Because I know that's only grown up about 3% compared to the 13% for like urban spayed and neutered dogs. It's not a very big increase. Is that maybe they're not as much work as we thought they were, or what's the justification for the lesser?
That's actually set under legislation.
Oh, okay.
And it is 50% more of the cost of what your entire urban fee would be.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And they're not often a lot. We don't have a lot classified as dangerous. The implication is very much on the owners that then have to have them muzzled in public, or they're not allowed off the section. Or if they're in a vehicle, they've got to be in a crate.
Any further questions? Good report.
Thank you.
Someone to move, we receive the report, please. Councillor Cretney, seconded by Councillor Cherry-Campbell. All in favour? Against? Carried. Someone to move that we adopt the dog control fees for 23-24. Councillor Ayling, seconded by Councillor Laurence. All in favour? Against? Carried. And motion that we give notice for fees and registration of dogs by public notification no less than 1 month prior to the fees taking effect. Moved by Councillor Cherry-Campbell, seconded by Councillor Newman. All in favour? Against? Motion is carried. Moving 7.6.
Perhaps we could beg the indulgence of the meeting.
I know.
Got the jingle?
So this is promoting our Life of the Dog tags because we want to get that mindset that it's a change to the system. And I'm apologising in advance.
Why? You win.
The new way to take out keeps the page safe and sound, keeps your dog out of strife. Dog tags for life. Scan the tag with your phone. It's the new way to find its home. Keeps your dog out of strife. Dog tags for life. Plastic tags are barking ahead. Get some tags. Dog tags for life.
Yeah, add that in.
Dog tags for life. Go to cdc.gov.nz.
Jeff loves it. I
But that will be
think.
starting on the radio, and it's one of those jingles that I think it works very effectively, because once you hear it, you're going to forget it.
How long did staff have to rehearse to record that?
It really doesn't sound like Solitaire, does it? But she's done a fantastic.
Was it
job.
Johannes rapping? Whakapono, have we got a Te Reo version? Right. 10.5, water race, water services update. It's a big update. Let's go.
Kia ora, your worship and elected members. So similar to the previous report around the reform, the moment that I send it off for approval authorization by Jeff, it's outdated. So this is a snippet in time, and I will talk to this report, and then I'll invite Jeff to possibly give some more information if required. So I take the report as read.
Mm-hmm.
So following in the minister has an indication of a reset of the reform that is still have to go to government and be legislated. The big changes in that reset, or the proposal in that reset, is moving from the 4 entities to 10 entities. We will be part of water service entity G instead of C. There's also a new proposed starting date, which is a staggered approach from 2025 to 2026, with potential to go earlier than that. There's further work continuing. The discussions around staff consultation will continue, and other works as well. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Jeff?
Yeah, I think you should.
So one of the key elements of the reset saw the second tranche of Better Off funding worth about $5.7 million to Carterton District Council being removed. So the initial tranche of Better Off funding that we were just previously talking about in the financial report, some of that will be carried over into the next year as those projects carry on. It was worth $1.7 million, and we will be able to continue to claim that as we progress those projects. But the remaining 75% of 5.7 is now off the table. There's a whole lot of reasons for that that the government have suggested, partly to do with that some of that debt being transferred to the water services entities on go live. So effectively they were using debt to fund the Better Off funding. Some of that was with regards the government now having to fund a longer transition period from what was July 2024 through to another 2 years potentially. But regardless of the reasoning, it's gone. So that's quite a significant detrimental impact for our community. The other challenge that we face is just around a longer transition period means greater uncertainty for our staff for a longer period of time, and that is also a concern for us and for the management team. There are, on the flip side, I've mentioned there are a number of Wellington councils that want to go early for a variety of reasons, some of which include debt caps, proposed rates increases that they may or may not want to front and transfer to the water services entity. Other may be around a desire to leave Wellington Water early for, I can't think why. On the flip side, Carterton has a very competent and capable in-sourced waters team. So our alternative option to going early is actually a very competent in-source, staying with a very competent in-source team for longer. So we need convincing that going early will actually either bring benefits for our community sooner or remove risk and uncertainty for our staff sooner. So that's probably my commentary.
Yeah. Is there any, I know there's a lot in that, and as Johannes has already pointed out, it seems that, seeing a write an update and it's out of date, that's how fast things are moving. Well, in that space. then it won't be the last change between now and when the legislation's introduced. Is anyone comfortable? Is there any particular area that you wish a little bit more explanation around, or sort of a bit more insight, if anything?
I have
That's
a
pretty good.
question that may or may not be something either you or Jeff couldn't answer. On page 88 under point 10 on the second paragraph, it's about listening and accountable to their community. And they state that it's a requirement for each water service entity to engage with communities in a meaningful and effective way. I'm curious as to, do we know how they're going to anticipate engaging with communities?
Mm-hmm.
So I have some idea from the existing legislation. So the regional representation group will be made up of I'll take a step backwards.
Yeah.
There are 9 councils in the Wellington region, including Greater Wellington. Greater Wellington have said that they do not wish to participate and have a seat on the regional representation group. So that will mean there are 8 councils as part of that RRG. Alongside the 8 councils will be 8 iwi members. So you'll have a regional representation group of 16. They will be responsible for setting the direction for the board and engaging with the board on the water services entities, planning and path and delivery mechanisms. In the previous legislation, there was another stakeholder group below the regional representation group that was much more local. So it was designed to pick up the desire for local input to feed up to the regional representation group. And that was needed because the RRG was such a vast area. And previously it was Gisborne through to Nelson and including Chatham's. So you needed some smaller entity to look at the local issues. So that remains in the legislation, and what it remains unclear is whether or not that will stay, given that we're now 10 entities and instead of 4. So the short answer is the previous legislation did have that local voice involved in it, and in some way or shape or form. I'm not sure whether it'll stay there post this reset.
Thank you. So I note that the RAG, there's talk about selecting the board, the water entity. I think that's crucial. Absolutely crucial as a first step.
Well, I think you are correct, Councillor Cherry-Campbell. The challenge is for the RRG, the local communities, to select the board of the local water services entity for our region, rather than allowing the DIA or the NTU to select that board and appoint it and gift it to us as a community. I think if we wish to go early, we should take control of our own future and appoint that board ourselves.
Completely agree.
In partnership with Mana Whenua through the RRG model. We have, I have provided that feedback to the DIA, and I know His Worship has also provided that feedback to the Minister.
Mr. Laurence.
We were circulated a letter from the mayors of Lower Hutt and Pororua regarding going early, if you like. And I was suggested that there might have been some subsequent discussion at a mayoral forum. I don't know if you are in a position to comment on what, if anything, eventuated.
The mayoral forums are pretty much Chatham House, but we're public. What I can say from that is that yes, that debate is live. The letter says it all. There is not. There are differing views amongst the different councils, like as the CE has just said. Regional council has stepped out. They do not want to be involved at all. Some councils have got very firm views against, and some councils are lobbying because they do want to go. And as the CE has said, there are internal reasons for each council. Some councils share the same common problems going forward, and so going early to them sheds those problems, whether that's future rate increases or whether that's their current level of satisfaction with the current entity that they are tied to. There are other councils who have no particular reason to go early unless something suited. And I think one of the things that's very clear with all the councils now is that we have a view that the DIA should not be selecting the WSC board and should not be selecting the CE. The confidence in that board will depend entirely upon the confidence the RRG has in the selection process and who's appointed. So that's going to be an ongoing conversation, and I think going forward, movement will depend on how those questions are answered. Yeah, one go.
Enter. A couple of clarification points about going early. To go early, I'd expect the minister would require all of the councils in that group to wish to go early. So if one or two of the councils didn't wish to go early, then it's highly unlikely the whole region would. At the moment, 5 of the councils are Wellington Water Councils and 3 are not. The 3 that aren't are Carterton, Masterton and Kapiti. The chief executives have also firmly given direction that they will only go early on a 1st of July date, and there will be no part year going early. We believe it has to be on the 1st of July, and then the year is the determining factor. 2024, there has been a lot of work already done to go early on 2024, and but it is a really very tight deadline. The challenge may come down to what's referred to in the Mayor of Paeroa's letter, the system of record. So the system of record, I think it's just a line in her letter, but in actual fact, it's a crucial part of the asset management system. It would record where the pipe is, the size of the pipe, the condition of the pipe, the type of the pipe, the owner of the pipe, the connections, etc. So that asset management system, that system of record, will also contain all of the faults on that pipeline and the service history. So that's a crucial element that is required for any water services entity to stand up on day one, because you'd expect on day one they'd be able to fix faults. And without the asset data, that would prove somewhat difficult.
Yeah. And I think you can pretty much take it as read unless there's unanimity, and I mean complete unanimity, the minister won't be signing off. So there's a lot of discussion to get. Just be sensitive that, just be aware that there are some strong views on the other side of the hill and both sides of the argument, and you'll probably walk into those occasionally with other councillors from other districts. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, just discussion, some more discussion, not so much a question, but I'm disappointed in the government going back on their word and taking away that 75% of 5.7 million. They call it better off funding. Well, I can't see how we're going to be better off. The only thing that we will probably get is a seat on the regional representative group. Which I think is really important, and it's probably making our own plans a lot easier. But one of the other concerns I have, the legislative changes with the government trying to rush through legislation before the general election this year. And they say in here there'll be a condensed opportunity for public feedback. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean no consultation, or we get a week to do it? Which really concerns me, because at the end of the day, the ratepayers own the asset and they're not getting time to publicly feedback. So that's my bit. The only thing, as I say, I would be very against going early because, as it's already been pointed out, I cannot see absolutely any benefits for Carterton District Council if we don't go early with the current setup we've got. Okay.
Are there any other comments or questions or points we wish to make?
Probably the only, I think just probably the only other flip side to what Brian's just said is that if it comes down to the fact that Carterton and Masterton and Kapiti are in the minority of going forward, there is still the opportunity to leverage some incentive or some advantage to Carterton by not resisting. You know, if it turns out that we can't stop it, we understand there are a number of opportunities to negotiate benefits to Carterton by being not necessarily willing, but at least not obstructive.
Yeah.
Pragmatically speaking, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
The question is July 24, July 25 or July 26. It's going to happen. And so if we are able to extract benefits for the community outside of this through another mechanism, given that you know, there is always those possibilities, and make the MP for Wairarapa look good, I'm hopeful that we could extract those benefits for our communities.
The message that we have amongst that group left people with is very clearly there has to be a reason for us to, any of the other councils can stop it going early. Can't stop it. You can stop it going early, but what does that gain you if you lose an opportunity to take an advantage somewhere? So it's a case of being pragmatic, keeping your eyes wide open, keep the conversation going, hear people out, and look for our opportunity that advantages our people, our ratepayers, our residents. And we'll always keep those eyes and ears wide open, won't we? Good. Okay. Us, Steve.
This might all change, mightn't it, with the change of government, potentially?
Can I just give you a snapshot? This legislation was drafted by National. Fact. You can Google up and go to the briefing for the incoming minister, October 2017. Follow the track. You will see, and you can request under the Official Information Act all of the papers that were produced by the former ministers of local government and the conversations of the paperwork between, within cabinet ministers. Labor, well, the coalition government picked it up. Could have dumped it, didn't. None of the rhetoric that we have analysed, read, and all of the election fluff says they will repeal it, end of story. It's all about return to local control. It's all mist and fog. The only clarity we have that we can actually work off is what's in writing in front of us right now. And I'd be quite happy. I'm firmly of the view that National may tweak, but they won't repeal this. This in its direction, its fundamental form is where Bill English, Nick Smith and Tolly wanted this to go. All the rest of it's words in the wind from where I sit. And that's from having sat at the table and heard the conversation around it, Steve. I don't believe National in any way, shape or form is going to completely repeal this and put us back to where we were before this started. It's not going to happen. easy.
Just the feedback from the Wellington Region CE's Councillor Laurence was that any go early decision would be made post-election, not pre-election. It didn't make sense from anyone's point of view to try and go early with an election hanging over the balance. So they wanted to delay the decision to go early until after the election, and the political landscape was somewhat more clear.
But that we can't afford to
stop work on it.
Stop work.
We'll carry on.
Yep. So we have a report. Can I have someone move that we receive the report?
I'll move that.
Councillor Newman, Councillor Laurence moved, and Councillor Newman second. Thank you very much, Janice. If all in favour? Aye. Against? Motion's carried. 7.6, Wellington Regional Waste Management.
You get all the good ones, don't you?
Thank you.
You got all the messy stuff.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is quite a straightforward paper. It is the next step from the the direction that we received in December to continue with the review and revise of the waste minimisation plan. So what we're asking council is to delegate to the Wellington Region Waste Management and Minimisation Plan Joint Committee, delegate to them to be able to consult, to jointly consult on our behalf. And that is the background. The alternative is that each Wellington Regional Council consult on independently, which would be obviously quite challenging. So I take the report as read and open to questions.
Councillor Cherry-Campbell.
Just one question, Johannes, bottom of page 95, regarding the temporary secondments of staff from various councils. The question is, will that put any additional stress on our resources?
Is the question, will delegating to them put more stress?
If there are going to be any secondments of any of our staff to the Wellington City Council or to the bigger, will that put any, like if we have to second staff, is that going to put a strain on our resources in other areas?
There's no indication at this stage that there would be any secondment to that. There's professional services that's supporting the draft of the waste minimisation plan.
Okay, it's just on the bottom of page 95. Sorry, it says this is likely to involve temporary secondments of staff from the various councils.
So at this could happen. That has not that has not been directed to Carterton District Council.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Any other questions? Straightforward. Can someone move that we receive the report, please? Councillor Cherry-Campbell, seconded by Councillor Gallen. All in favour? Aye. Against? Motion's carried. Approves the delegation of the Wellington Region Waste Management and Minimisation Plan consultation process to the Wellington Region Waste Management and Minimisation Plan Joint Committee in line with as read. Someone to move, please. Councillor Della, seconded by Councillor Ayling. All in favour? Aye. Yes, motion's carried. Thank you. 7.7, Destination Wairarapa. Thought Anna might be.
Unfortunately, Anna is enjoying Fiji and not New Zealand's lovely weather at the moment.
Destination Fiji. Destination Wairarapa.
So you got stuck with me, sorry. So I'll do my best, but again, if you've got questions, I can take them away and ask her and bring them back to you. So one of the things at the last council meeting, we talked about the graphs, and they were quite hard to read, needed them to change or work on them. Unfortunately, Anna gets all of this information from the MBIE website. So she can't alter any of these. What she's done is underneath every graph, there's a box there with a little bit more explanation around what that means for Wairarapa. One of the examples that she's given here is on page 100, which is the measures for all accommodation types in the Wairarapa. So currently our occupancy rate is sitting at 56%, but due to the stats that are provided, it doesn't create an accurate picture. So back a few years ago, it was a requirement from MB that all establishments provided information on their bookings through to Stats NZ. They've stopped that, which means that now only 33% of the establishments in the Wairarapa provide feedback on their capacity, and 26% of that is our holiday parks, camping grounds, etc. So what that means is that we're not getting a true picture because the summer has been quite wet. People obviously aren't going to go camping. It's showing that our occupancy rate is less, but the feedback from the establishments is that they're completely booked most weekends. So we can't gauge a true picture of these stats. Page 104 There's on the second paragraph down, she talks about how it looks like our numbers, our tourism expenditure numbers are increasing by 4.3%, but we're dropping down in the list. And that's due to the fact that international travel has started back up. So you're seeing Queenstown and Rotorua stats coming in and increasing that. On page 106 for STEP funding. So that STEP funding is coming to an end at the end of this financial year. So what we'll start to see happen is the flashy marketing bits and pieces that you get, the big articles in the Dominion Post and all of that, that's all funded through the STRAP funding. So that will start to slow down and stop and only be on occasion, whereas it used to be quite regularly. Yeah, sounds like I knew what I was talking about. Any questions?
Going around the table. Any questions? Any comments? Councillor Cretney.
Glenda, Anna's kind of made it quite significant about the stat funding.
Yeah.
Is she or DW going to put something to council that, or to the three councils, that we provide more funding so that certain things can carry on in that way?
Not that I've heard, but long-term plan is coming up next year. So I would say that as per their normal arrangement, they'll do a submission to long-term plan. Do you know more?
No, it's a little bit more. So as part of the WEEDS forum that we had last week, STEP funding came up, but less about the funding and more about the individual. And the individual that is currently working for Destination Wairarapa was at risk of obviously being lost because the STEP funding was ceasing. WEEDS have also just recently adopted the dark skies strategy for Wairarapa, particularly Carterton and South Wairarapa. And Destination Wairarapa put up a proposal to WEEDS to use the same resource that is currently with STEP funding to start picking up the marketing plans and the development plan for dark skies. And that was approved. So the individual's going to stay on and pick up dark sky program, which for the Wairarapa is a fantastic opportunity. So I'm not sure whether they'll come back to us later on in the year with regard to STEP funding, but certainly the individual that's doing such great work for DW is going to stay on doing some new work on dark skies.
Right.
Good stuff. Any other questions? Any other questions?
Just an observation. The visitor spend, Southwire's gone up 17% in the last 3 years. Marston's gone up 33.8% and we've only gone up 9%.
Yeah. So the reason for that, it's her words, not mine. There's nothing to buy. So Martinborough South Wairarapa has got the vineyards, they've got the activities, Masterton's got accommodation activities. We're lacking accommodation and we're lacking tourism. We're not lacking tourism. We're lacking paid tourism in Carterton. There's lots across Carterton that is free, and I think she highlighted that in the report as well. You can come, you can spend $5-10 or a tank of gas and you get to enjoy Carterton, but we're not making anything from that.
Yeah, 104 talks a lot about that, page 104, and whether we have attractions that people don't have to pay for, and they don't spend anything walking up Mount Holloway or that, and she raises the issue whether you have a gate fee and the disadvantages and advantages of doing that. So it is about if people are going to come here and do the walks, how do you get them to spend their money here? And if they're staying in a hotel or a motel down in Greytown, the report says that's basically where they're going to spend their money. So I guess if we would look at service providing for the rural community, maybe the stats might be a bit different in terms of builders and that area. I don't know. Maybe that's where we need to have better eyes on some of our own financial data to be honest that we're actually winning somewhere.
But that in itself is a selling point for Carterton, that families can come to Carterton and have a day out and enjoy nature and enjoy everything for a tank of gas,
And that's,
you know, which is kind of a, you know, I guess that's our point of difference in Wairarapa is that what we've got is just as good, but costs less or potentially is free.
and Marston's got the same thing. You look at the train and you look at the park, the lake, its access is free. But it's whether or not there's just families spend on accommodation, spend on food and spend on those other things. That's the challenge.
It's about capturing.
We'll get there.
You know,
it's size and scale.
I think, like Anna says, there's ample opportunities for tourism, for people to start, like guided walks, with storytelling attached to it, or there's lots of opportunities for people.
Kind of what Chrissy was come on board to do, wasn't it? So it'd be really interesting to see from Destination Wairarapa what Carterton-based businesses she worked with to produce the outcomes that she was brought in to do, specifically for our region.
Yeah.
Nothing further. Can someone move that we receive the Destination Wairarapa quarterly report? Councillor Cretney, seconded by Councillor Laurence. Thank you for putting your glasses on. Okay. All in favour? Aye. Motion's carried. TE.
Thank you, Your Worship. Firstly, I'd like to shout out to our community events team for the outstanding events that they pulled off for Anzac Day, Service Memorial Day, and also for the coronation of King Charles III. The marquee and planting went exceptionally well, and I know the community were very, very grateful to receive totara trees, which I should have pointed out are allergic to being planted in road berms and above drains near council footpaths. So if anyone's listening, they are allergic to being planted next to council drains. But that was an outstanding couple of events on behalf of our community, so well done to the team. And I'd also like to just highlight also some of the work that the roading team is doing, particularly, and council may wish to discuss whether or not you'd like to undertake some further work around, or potentially a temporary closure on some roads, in particularly Hughes Line, which is getting quite a lot of traffic and damage at this stage from the roundabout repair work being undertaken on State Highway 2. So you may wish to consider as part of that. And finally, whilst I have delegated authority to pay invoices and things that are part of our annual plan, of which the Local Government New Zealand subscription is one, I am very conscious that the council had some members of the council had views on that. So rather than remove that choice from you, all I've done is let you know that I'm about to pay it before I pay it. So, take questions.
There's a lot in the report. It's a good report. Questions or points of clarification, comments? Councillor Cretney.
Thanks, His Worship. Jeff, I just had a question on page 126 under the trails delivery. There was money set aside, I think it was around 60K for that. This could have been already investigated. I'm just wanting to confirm on behalf of someone out in the community. The Dakins Road to Gladstone Road cycle trail, has that been investigated, and is that funding still set aside for that investigation?
I know in the plan, the only funding I had for trails as part of the LTP was Greytown to Carterton.
So I know previous to me being employed here, BC was contracted to do some work with the group to look at that Dakins Road to Gladstone, and they got so far. We had one landowner that didn't agree, and that approved the whole trail at that stage. I think that's sitting on the back burner at the moment, and it will probably be picked up later down the track once we're moving into the low details with my accounts.
Okay, not an active project, and I do recall there was one landowner, and also there hadn't been engagement with Huranui Arangi Marae to allow people to go from the Marae down to the river and back again, and some challenges there. So it's not an active project we're currently working on.
Okay, so is that funding, are you able to find out if there was funding set aside
I don't, my memory was that there wasn't any for that Dakins Road, Gladstone.
Yeah.
Funding wasn't for that.
Only funding in the
Only
LTP
funding.
was that I've got for trails that because we were very clear on it, was the Carterton Greytown link.
Thank you. Councillor Ayling.
I have a few questions. First one I just wanted to say was, thanks for including the information on the event centre attendance. I think that's really helpful information about last time, not just having the Facebook engagement, but seeing actually how many mums on sets we're having. That's really great to see. The second point was around the Carrington Park toilets. I wondered if you could just talk a little bit about the constant damage and vandalism that's happening there and what council is going to do, if anything, at this point.
I'm happy to lead out and Glenda will correct me when I go astray. We do have, you're absolutely right, we have constant damage with Carrington Park toilets. And one of the things that the ELT has discussed as to whether or not that is something we'd like to bring forward into the LTP is do a complete upgrade on those toilets so that they are similar to the Greytown toilets. We've found talking to South Wairarapa District Council that they don't seem to have the damage with their Main Street toilets that we do with ours. And so it may be that, or we believe that an upgrade of those toilet facilities would be certainly beneficial in terms of maintenance and damage, but also benefit for the community. I don't know, do you want to add anything?
So it is a daily occurrence with quite frequently, every day, the locks have been broken. There's vandalism, there's graffiti, there's the toilet paper being stolen, the soap being stolen, the dispensers being broken. It is an ongoing problem that we've just got to manage at the moment the best we can, and hope that we can work towards it. It leads into other conversations that we're having in the community around working with groups and young people and doing a little bit of education and support in that space as well.
Do you want a recommendation from us through at some point, Glenda, that this be a priority for staff to work on costings and options for the LTP?
That would be really great.
Councillor Newman.
I know we talked about these toilets and that it's the 24-hour one that seems to be getting a lot of the damage. I think there would be value in looking at moving that 24-hour toilet to be the one by the square. It's still close enough to the main road that people can use it. Greytown's got the one on the main road that is 24 hours, and Masterton does as well. And I just think if you moved it away from the park, it might just change how it's treated.
Perhaps we bring some options and recommendations back to council.
Yeah. Are there any other questions I can't show? I know the toilets one is right up there from most of us, yes, but there are others. So, Councillor Ayling?
I just had a mention I just saw in the page 137, it talks about the annual plan. That feedback is open between 21st of April and the 15th of May. So just a plug for anyone listening to this, get your feedback in. You've got 5 more days. I just think we want the community to engage on this. So, 5 more days until that's closing off.
Okay.
The toilets. I've seen people at really odd hours, truck drivers and all that, pull up and use those toilets all hours. I think having them there 24 hours is a good thing. There's so many people do use them at really odd hours. Legitimate people, but unfortunately have vandalism too.
It would be interesting to, it'd be interesting to see if the 24-hour one, what cost, when you bring in costings back, even to have a 24-hour one with the same set up down in Greytown, where it, instead of doing the whole lot, just all of the various options, because that might then sort of help with some behaviours. And I think that's really important for the community to know that our Parks and Reserves team on a daily and multiple times a day going to these toilets and checking them out and repairing them. But then there are members of our community, unfortunately, who have no respect, who are trashing them and spoiling it for everybody else. which in turn then makes council look bad. And short of having somebody there 24/7, we're not going to be able to combat bad behaviours from external people.
I think anyone else? I think I've said this before. There is a psychology behind the design of the toilets in Martinborough and Greytown. That's why they're more expensive than ours because of that. And I think maybe talking to the people who designed them, talking to other councils who have them, and talking with other councils who have the type of facility we have, where the difference is. I know people treat things as they see them and as they feel about them. If you've got a person talking to you, telling you the door's going to open in 10 minutes, you tend to get the hell out of there. You don't stand if Barry Malino's singing to you, you probably want to leave earlier. So all trip Miller. But there's a whole bunch of things in there, and maybe Jeff, if we could take offline and have a conversation about a pathway forward. What we all agree, I know, is that it's reputational damage to Carterton when people come and love the park, love the playground, but boy, do they let you know about the state of our toilets, and that is a behaviour. It might well be the communications. There's a communications challenge in there for us as well, and maybe we've got to do something. But even maybe painting them a brighter colour might have people change the way they treat them. Other than toilets, is there anything else in the plan? Please, Councillor Newman.
Event centre.
Yes.
I like having extra information. It'd be really good to know with the ticketed events, what percentage of tickets have been sold for those events. It's just, is it 30%? Is it 80%? Is it 90%? I'd just be interested to know what capacity is it, and possibly how we could be increasing.
That last bit, sorry.
Like, so if we're only selling 60% of tickets, what's the plan to kind of increase the engagement and people attending the events? Or even what events aren't well attended, like that kind of breakdown.
Thank you.
Any other councillor? Oh, hello.
Yeah, I just want, under the Parks and Reserves report, the bats at Carterton Forest.
Oh, that's
you asked
cool.
about,
That's so
somebody asked about the bats.
Yeah,
And,
we were going to.
So, I think we should discuss the bats, and can you give us an update, please?
Yeah, so
Oh, you're so bad.
Clint's so excited. We've got native bats. And
What are their names?
The first one was surprisingly named Clint. No, he's really excited, and so am I. They're endemic to New Zealand. They're native, obviously, but they are very, very difficult to find, and they are very hard to keep alive because they are predated quite a lot by rats and stoats. And so to actually have native bats up in the Kaipa tangata was really exciting. So we would like to, I'm sure Clint would support us, but we would like to continue that program and make sure the bats have environments that they are safe in, that they can grow, and that probably may include increasing our pest control in that area to support their growth. But yeah, he was super excited. We've got bats, and so
Really exciting.
it sounds really silly, but they're the only native mammal in New Zealand, so land mammal. So
Was he part of the team that was there all night watching them?
probably. I don't know, but
The whole week.
But a group of the Parks team did go up and support the bat group.
Cool.
And it was a really cool experience for the Parks and Reserves team as well. So it's been a really cool project to be part of.
They all call Batman now. Batwoman.
what's that? What got caught in the wastewater system? Because there was a Batman costume in the wastewater pump that got. You remember a couple of months ago?
That's very, very cool. That's Has we done anything on comms in that space?
No, we haven't. We've just been working with the group. So the group wanted to bring this to you guys in the first instance, and then we'll look at comms.
You don't want a whole lot of people going up there.
No, that's
Well, what can you see? They're silent and they're out at night.
What's that?
Yeah, that's very, very cool. Any other questions, Councillor Ayling?
I just had a question about the subscription to LGNZ. I totally appreciate that you have the delegation to sign off on all of our invoices. I just wonder if it's appropriate for us to have a conversation around our membership of LGNZ at this time, or if that's an annual discussion that needs to happen. But I just feel like, given the fact that Auckland have pulled out of LGNZ, there's some thought around the table of whether or not we get benefit. I'd love to understand what the benefit is to Carterton for us to pay 36,000 plus GST to be part of LGNZ. And if now's the time to have that discussion, or if it needs to happen at a later date. But I just think now we have the invoice, it seems pertinent to have a conversation.
Well, it's in the budget at the moment and was approved, I guess, in the last plan, but so it's with the CE, but I think it's appropriate. It's knowing where we have that conversation.
I just wanted to let you know that I was about to pay it, and if you didn't want me to, or you were going to change that instruction, what I didn't want to do was remove that option from the governance table when I knew that there was some questions. So I thought I'd just let you know, and if you want to change an instruction to me, then now's the time to do it.
So I think some of us have expressed have gone to those meetings, and I can tell you that this very conversation is alive and well, both north and south of us. I've had other elected representatives tell me they'll never go to another one again because they found them a gross waste of time. I can tell you that I have, at the Merrill Forum, it was discussed. There are people who obviously sit on various executive appointments with LGNZ who are very supportive, and then there are mayors who get tired. I think it's a conversation we probably need to have away from this table where people can, be free and frank. It's right now, whether or not you want to send a message, whether or not you want to make adjustment or watch and see what happens. I'm going to go to the Local Government New Zealand conference, and that's open to members. If you wish to, we need to be there. But from myself, I'll be watching and evaluating because I don't see the same organisation that I saw many years ago. It's quite wishy-washy in my view.
Just really a question to Jeff. What are the main benefits that you and staff see around the membership of LGNZ that perhaps we don't?
So in terms of one of the main differences, so I came from a corporate background, one of the main benefits that we get is the ability to share information and particular policies amongst councils, and that a lot of that comes through LGNZ. We also get, lots of heads up on legislation, and that allows us to target our feedback, particularly for government legislation where we don't have the capacity within a small council to keep up to date with the volume that's coming through. So LGNZ summarises a great deal of information and provides a very good analysis for us, and we can then determine at a quick glance whether or not we want to participate in feedback to a select committee. So we also get the connections in terms of our colleagues around other councils. I know of plagiarised quite a number of other councils' policies, and we're in the process of potentially doing that for a couple of others at the moment who have particularly good policies that we've been able to pick up through LGNZ. So the team and I are very supportive of this. I know there are questions at a governance level, but from a management level, we're really supportive of the benefits that we get from LGNZ, and we think $26,000 a year is actually really worthwhile for us. And the benefits that we see. We don't have in-house legal counsel, for example. We don't have a lawyer on tap. Right, so larger councils have a lawyer on tap and they can do this stuff. We don't. So even if we just look at it from a legal perspective, that's 25 grand worth of legal costs that we're not currently incurring by going out and asking for advice and support.
Now, we do use legal teams specifically, for example, for the district plan, or where we've got a regulatory issue, and a building consent, we'll have a specific legal advisor. But, even just from a legal perspective, that's value for money in my book.
What do you get from LGNZ that's different to Solgum?
Solgum, Taituara is more about personal and training and development for the management team. So they'll do a lot of training courses for the management team. And Solgum also do what's referred to as list serve. So it's where we are able to connect with other chief executives or other finance CFOs, etc. So my view is that over time, those two organisations are going to have to look at their futures because they don't make a great deal of sense being separate.
Yeah. And in terms of your ability to look at other councils' procedures and issues and challenges they're facing, are you able to get those conversations when you meet with other CEs at Solgum?
I haven't personally gone to Solgum. I've only ever gone to an LGNZ meeting.
Yeah, okay.
I think that might answer your question.
Yeah.
I guess too, and as you've mentioned, bigger councils have their own in-house legal teams. They also have their own in-house policy writers, which for me, hearing you say that the benefits for our management team and for yourself, to me that $26,000 is quite cost effective. The benefits you've just listed now, yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, my preference would be that the chief executive pays the invoice and that when we go to local government conference in Christchurch, I'm sure there'll be discussion around Auckland's decision. And just, I think it would be good for His Worship and those going to come back and report back to council about the mood of other councils or councils similar to us. And then we have a workshop around not just whether we should save money by not paying them or them as much, but where we might better put our money to get what we need, with a view to making some decisions around annual plan for next year.
Yeah,
that would be my.
I'm inclined. There are some things that I'm asked to attend, and there's some speakers who take up hours of my time who provided me no value whatsoever. And if we could be a little bit more zeroed around what the purpose of meetings are, or what this discussion chat group is really aiming to deliver in value to all of the mayors who've taken the time out to get on Zoom and participate for 2 hours or however long it is, then we could, then one might have a warmer view. There are technical people in behind an LGNZ within the organisation who are highly skilled, very experienced, have been around a long time. They know the history of local government New Zealand quite deeply, and they know the issues well. I see value in part. I struggle with value in whole. But I guess for me, I was telling the deputy earlier today, I will go to the Local Government New Zealand conference, and I'll try and keep an open mind, but judge it on what we see, because that one exercise in itself is not inexpensive. It involves travel, it involves accommodation, it involves people taking time away from here and being down there for 2 days, 2 days and another night. It's got to be more than wine and cheese.
Yeah.
So I think we note that the city's brought it to our attention, and unless I'm seeing someone move a motion.
Change that second recommendation from endorses to just note.
Yes, exactly. So would probably go for that.
I was just going to ask, do we want to talk about Hughes Line?
Yeah, I think we want to talk about, there's a couple of other things in there as well. So now we've dealt with the LGNZ thing, because some of us want to talk about it, the major projects as well. But anyone else? Dale.
I've just got a couple of comments, but if we're going to switch are fairly minor, so if you want to discuss. Just wanted to congratulate on sort of what page is it? Around the zero waste. Congratulate our council for hosting the training for event organisers. I think that's hugely important and will take a lot of supposition out of the equation. So congrats on doing that. And the other is a little slightly tongue in cheek, and bearing in mind that we just had our New Zealand citizenship ceremony today. And I did declare that I live on Taverner Street. So on the 3 water renewals, I was delighted to hear that the kowhai trees weren't being removed. However, some of the trees around there are diseased, and perhaps you could look at replacing them with some new kowhai trees. And Mick has said that as he didn't get a citizenship ceremony when he became a New Zealand citizen during the COVID period, he would be more than happy to donate his kowhai tree, and maybe others that also went through the same experience of not going through a ceremony during COVID, they might like to donate theirs too. Just a little suggestion there.
I could answer that. More than happy to, I think if the trees are diseased, we should take them out. Our preference is particularly along road reserves and berms that the planting of the trees goes inside the property, not on the road berm, because that will create problems for the council in 10 or 15 years' time when the roots start going through the new pipe that we put down there. So we are moving the pipe closer to the road on Taverner Street, which is why we don't have to dig up and take out the trees. But in my preference is the trees either go closer to the property edges or just inside the property.
I know along Rexwood they did replace diseased kowhai with new ones.
Yeah.
Or root trainers.
Yeah.
It was just a suggestion.
Okay, thank you. Hugh's line.
Well, only because you mentioned it right at the very start. I guess I just really want to know, what is the problem? How big is the problem? What are the options? And what are the pros and cons of the preferred option?
With your permission, could we ask Johannes to?
Yeah,
Absolutely. Thank you. So the challenge with use line is that it's a legal road, and road users are choosing to use line. Now, what that has meant is a significant increase in traffic volumes on that, because use line still has a speed of 100 kilometers per hour, where there's a significant drop in speed on state highway. The second section of use line is still typical to our other rural roads, very narrow. So the increased volume of vehicles on the road is creating an unsafe scenario where trucks and vehicles goes onto the shoulder. Now, what that has done is it's cutting out the edge of the surfacing, creating potholes and damaging the wheels of vehicles. This will continue until the road user behaviour changes. We received a number of calls yesterday. The maintenance team is there today to address those issues, but that will continue. We will be in the same position in a week or two, depending on the weather. So it's posing a significant challenge, and it's the choice of the road users to be there.
So what are the options?
There's been the option is to either slow down the vehicles, or potentially close off use line for residents only. We could do that. However, that would have a significant impact on the Wairarapa, because a lot of people do travel on use line. That would probably be the most feasible, or that would reduce the risk, manage residents or road users to use State Highway 2 when they're travelling in between Carterton and Masterton. And it would also remove that interaction with residents and the very high volume of traffic. The the other risk by doing that is that you would traffic would choose to go up Wilton's Road, Chester Road, and just do something else, which is a challenge. So it is a difficult one, or we can continue to maintain as we're currently doing, but that obviously comes with a cost and frustration to the road users.
Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, I travel that road regularly too. I sympathise with the rural residents up there in the increase of traffic, but the northern end from East Territory Road to Cornwall Road is the bit that's under question and under threat. Basically, I travelled it yesterday, and the berms are digging out, and it's not even raining, so if we got some wet weather, they'd be even worse. So to me, apart from closing the road for a week basically and doing a proper remedial upgrade on it, the only alternative I think is to repair as is being done, as Johanna said. The contractors are up there today.
And drop speed?
The dropping of speed would have to be done with physical barriers somehow. Signs are not going to cut it.
Yeah, if it's not.
So it would have to be, some sort of physical barrier or.
Yeah. I've got a sense that this conversation could go quite a long sometimes. So I think we probably do need to have an earmark for a separate workshop around this, because it won't just be that road. You take action here, it's like jelly goes through your fingers. People will pop out somewhere else, as you quite rightly pointed out, whether it's Wilton's Road or whether it's Chester Road, people will pop out somewhere else. The key issue, the cause of all of this is Waka Kotahi's methodology around the construction that they're engaged in, and how the traffic I had, I won't name the person, but a very senior and very well-known and highly regarded member of our community stopped me this morning on the footpath and tell me that it had taken her 50 minutes to get from Carterton to Masterton yesterday. It's saying 50. I'm hearing constantly about business people being late for meetings, board meetings, and tradies being late for appointments because of that. The economic impact is not small, and I think if you go back to another report we have, they talk about card spend from Carterton and Greytown dropping up in Marston, and notably, this all comes down to Waka Kotahi. So I think in the conversation we have, we need to have a clear picture as to how long this is going to go on for, and a separate strategy of what are we going to do about it? Because I don't see people working on those sites at night when I drive through there. And there are many, I think I can count on one hand the number of times I've actually seen a whole team of people actually active on the site. So I guess it's understanding what's causing it, whether or not there's chance for Kotahi to ramp up their operation, and what we have to do in the meantime. And if we take action on Hughes, what's the most likely consequence going to be, and how we're going to deal with that? I don't think it's as simple, sit around this table, find a solution.
There is some urgency though, I think, isn't there?
Sorry?
I think there is some urgency.
There is a degree of urgency, because it'd be too late when there's a death.
Is Waka Kotahi open to increased funding assistance for repair of Hughes as a consequence of Highway 2?
That has been presented to the from the project team to their board, or to the appropriate team to.
We've submitted it to Waka Kotahi and they've taken it up the line.
Okay.
In terms of, maybe just to comment on your worship, so they are in the stage now where they are doing the surfacing part of the roundabouts. We had a meeting with the project team last week where they indicated that they're aiming to have the surfacing of the roundabouts completed by the end of May. So that's what they're currently doing. I've seen them out there a couple of times over the last week, this week and last week, working on that surfacing. It's not something that we control or have any influence in, but they are making some progress on that. I think the challenge for us is we can go and repair used line now. The width of used line is not appropriate for that volume of traffic, and that's probably the main concern. Even if we close it for a week, we can tidy it up, but we can't widen the road within a week. And we don't have an approved budget for that.
That's right. So that comes down to a workshop session where we can sit down and thrash out some of these ideas when you've got more time to talk about that. I think the only final question, what conversations with the police?
So we're not in conversation with the police. I know that they have been out on use line. The challenge though is that they can't enforce on a temporary speed limit. They can enforce on the permanent speed limits. This is how I understand it. So even though there's a section where the speed has been dropped, they can only enforce on if they're going over the 100 kilometres an hour.
What do they suggest the answer is?
How does that work if they're sitting in the middle of the roadworks on the way on Highway 2 snapping people?
They can.
Well, why don't we pack it up?
I think
pack it up with the police and see what we can do. Because I'm sure they'll be as interested in road safety as we are.
They ping people for going through roadworks, which are temporary, on a regular basis.
So whether they do that and is successful in enforcing it is two different, and whether if it were to be opposed, whether they would be successful, I don't know.
I'm not good at ifs. I think you're right, Jeff. You have that conversation with the police, and if some of us need to go and have a conversation with the area commander, then so be that. We'll do that. But they're not saying too much, but I know that they've given people tickets for going too fast in temporary speed zones. And people have paid the fines. So I'd struggle. I'd want to see their data. But look, let's take that offline. I think that it's a very serious issue, and you're right to have brought it to the table. Absolutely. Thank you. Are there any other questions on the CE's report? There's a lot in there, I know. We could do the whole meeting just on that one. No? We're all comfortable. Can I ask that someone please move that we receive the report? Councillor Cherry-Campbell, seconded by Councillor Della. All in favour?
Aye.
Yes, motion carried. Can I, by leave, seek that we note the payment of I'll move that we note the payment of 2023-24 LGNZ subscription.
Second. Councillor Williams is second.
Councillor Deputy Mayor. All in favour? Aye. Against? Thank you.
Thank you.
Dale, can I ask you to take it? Oh, look, I'm going to excuse myself, folks. Deputy Mayor will take over. And thank you. Thank you. Apologies. Thank you.
Okay. Let's go to the next item, which is 7.9. Local Government Information and Meetings Act requests.
This is our standard report on the information requests we've received since the last council meeting. Provides an update.
Getting smaller and smaller every time.
Smaller, yep. We've had a bit of a rush on taxpayer union requests and several more this month. But other than that, we're not getting a whole lot of requests at the moment. Wasn't looking at you guys. So otherwise, I'll take the report as read and happy to answer questions.
Any questions? Any comments? Straightforward. It's what we do. Okay, there's a recommendation, page 164, that the council receives the report. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Newman. Second to Councillor Cretney. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. 7.10, CDC appointments to external groups. Kelly, welcome.
Thank you. So this paper is for the council to appoint some representatives to 2 external groups, one being the Carter Society and the other being the Waiahine River Plan Advisory Committee for the next triennium. So you see there's a bit of a background about the 2 groups and why council representatives are requested, and recommendations for Carter Society for Councillor Cretney and previous Councillor Jill Greathead, who has an interest in Carter Society, to be representatives for council, and for Councillor Cherry-Campbell to be the representative for the Greater Wellington Regional Council Waihine River Plan Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Kelly. Are there any questions of Kelly's report? Very straightforward.
Just about the Carter Society. So it's an incorporated society, is it?
Yep.
So what
Charitable trust.
is it? I just wonder what we're actually appointing people to be.
Raise a good point. It's not anything that is directly controlled by council. It's not a subsidiary of council. We don't have the Carter Court assets are no longer council's assets. Owned and operated by the Incorporated Society. We did have the same question as to why are we appointing 2 representatives on it, and when we looked at their constitution, it states that they will have 2 representatives from council on their constitution.
Okay. So are they, but it's not a trust though. We're not appointing trustees, asking people to be trustees, are we?
I don't believe so. I think they're incorporated society, aren't they, Steve? Yeah.
Yep. This would have been a hangover from when we handed it over.
Yeah, they're exactly right. So
Yeah.
it's certainly they would need to update their constitution in order to remove it, but we don't have to make the appointments. It's
No, sometimes you can put your hand up to be on something and then find that you've taken on some responsibilities you didn't see. Over to you guys, but
I think Carter Court just wanted to see ongoing council support for their operation, because council got it going and operated itself. And I think it was a good deal both ways when council shifted it off its books. And if our contribution going forward is Councillor Cretney taking one for the team, then it's,
oh, okay, put it like that.
Oh, yeah,
it's a good deal.
under the bus.
Are there any other questions or comments about this report? Okay, well, thank you, Councillor Cretney and Councillor Cherry-Campbell. I'm happy to take both of those collectively. Do I have a mover, please, for the recommendation? Councillor Della, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Ayling, thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, 7.11, terms of reference, Rural Advisory Group. Kelly again.
So after the election, the council decided to introduce a new advisory group, the Rural Advisory Group. So the terms of reference attached have been through this group and have their approval, but are coming to council for adoption.
Thank you. That's a very good move forward. The members who have come onto it are very excited about the possibilities and very appreciative of having their voice acknowledged and heard. And yeah, I think it's got the reason the terms of reference is deliberately short is because they want to evolve. They want to work out how they're going to best invest their time and how they're going to be able to feed back things of value to all parties as time goes on. So we might find it evolves over time.
I've just got one, just I think unnecessary duplication, keeping it even shorter. Under membership, you've just repeated an elected member will chair the advisory group and deputy chair, and that's already covered off in point 2. Just wondering whether that just needs to be deleted.
Yeah, we'll take that out of 3 membership.
Yeah.
Leave it up in 2.
Councillor Della, have you got any comment?
No, I haven't got much to say about it. It's whilst our first meeting, we worked through the terms of reference. And as Dale said, we made them short on purpose because we want that flexibility basically. And we've got some really engaged people on the committee that haven't really had much local body experience before. So they're looking forward to the challenge. So, you know, it's really good. I'm happy with it.
And timely with the cyclones, you know, the rural support network and their involvement, I think lines of communication having already been established, enabled a lot of good work to happen immediately. Okay, any questions or comments of this report? The recommendation is the council confirms that TOR for the CDC RAG.
I'm probably also.
I could, yeah. All those years on civil defence. Thank you, councillor Della. Seconded, councillor Cretney. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against, carried. Okay, we'll go to 7.12, which, thank you, Kelly, which is the two items of late agenda items. The first is 7.12, Community Grants Committee Delegations. Happy to give a couple of minutes for everybody to read it first. And welcome, Glenda.
Thank you. So as Dale's already spoken at the beginning of this meeting, we've met with the grants committee and there is a few tweaks and adjustments that we need to make to the policy before it goes out publicly when we open the grants round. So we're just asking for the community grants committee to have the delegation to adopt those changes, and then we'll bring that back to the policy and projects committee meeting in June for final noting.
Councillor Newman, Councillor Cherry-Campbell, any comments you want to make on that workshop we had the other day?
No, I don't think so. But apart from the fact that there are changes that need to be made, and as is in the report, that we don't have time to bring it back to a full council meeting for adoption before the grants round opens. And it's making it current and fit for purpose, given the changing climate that we're in.
Yeah, it's just around streamlining the types of grants that are available. You know, we've got multi-year grants, we've got local grants, we've got regional grants, and just making sure that we get the best bang for buck and that we're supporting the organisations, the grassroots organisations that contribute greatly back to Carterton, more so than perhaps supporting large-scale organisations that you know are there anyway. But all of those discussions we need to make, but it's really just timing. The grants round is early June, so this needs tidied up before that. Any questions or comments? Any concerns, any issues before I put the recommendation? Okay, the recommendation in three parts: that the council receives the report. Second, delegates responsibility to the Community Grant Committee to amend and adopt the Financial Grants Fund policy. And third, notes that the amended policy will be submitted to the Policy and Projects Committee in June for noting. So that's the pathway. I'm happy to take all three. Is everybody happy I take all three at once? Mm-hmm. Moved by councillor Cherry-Campbell, seconded by councillor Ayling. Thank you. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, Glenda. Okay, and the last outside of public excluded is the late agenda item 7.13.
might need to talk to.
Yeah, I'm just conscious that I'm happy to give people a few minutes to read it if you wish. There's a little bit in there. Thanks, Jeff.
So, got a team, you'll all be aware that, well, some of you may not be, but we held a future for local governance in the Wairarapa working group. In the last triennium, there were 7 members of that committee of working group, effectively 2 from the 3 district councils and Adrienne Staples from Greater Wellington. They progressed some work around the future governance for the Wairarapa councils up to a point, and then parked it whilst the local body elections occurred in October with a view to picking it up again. As I stated there, the council that had 100% return was Carterton, where Robin Cherry-Campbell, Deputy Mayor Dale Williams were re-elected back. That didn't occur in South Wairarapa or in Masterton. So what we've proposed here is to restart that group and restart the conversations around the future for local governance in the Wairarapa. And I'm sure a lot of people will already jump to an answer that they think is the right solution. But at this stage, we are looking to just restart the conversation. And given that Dale and Robin were from Carterton and are part of the original group, we thought it best that we lead by example. And so we brought this late paper to our council meeting so that we're able to consider it and make appointments before it goes to Masterton, who may consider it next week in their council meeting. And then it'll also go to South Wairarapa. But we thought, given that we've led the charge from the previous group, that it's probably best that we table this with the council for you to consider first.
Thank you, Jeff. And really, we believe, and since the election, there's been some really positive things happen across the Wairarapa with all 3 councils plus GWRC in this regard. So the conversations are willing, and the first step is to reconvene the working group. And we believe, as it said in this paper, and this paper will go to the other councils as well to give them sort of impetus in their public discussion. But we believe the next 6 or 7 months is going to be critical. There's a lot happening outside of local government in the Wairarapa, but we believe there's an opportunity. A lot of the work has already been done in the past 2 reorganisation proposals, so we don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's more around updating the information that we have and determining or driving to an outcome that hopefully can be achieved by the end of the year, and then all the councils with a stake in this can go to the public through the LTP process next year and all ask the same questions or put the same thinking to all of the residents and ratepayers across the Wairarapa to enable them to feed into what the Wairarapa could look like in future. And I guess the flip side to that is the DIA, as you know, are running a future for local government project covering all of New Zealand, and we sense that that will be reinvigorated early in the new year after the election and will become another priority of reform from whoever the government is. And so we've got a window of opportunity to influence our future in the Wairarapa rather than wait until, death by 1,000 cuts or changes imposed upon us. So it's a great opportunity, we believe.
and I'm certainly recommending that the members of last working group from CDC, myself and Councillor Cherry-Campbell, be reappointed so that we are continuing as we began. Questions? Steve?
I'm happy to move all of those.
Question down here. I love the way you think.
My only question was in the next step section, it says that it suggests two representatives as well as a deputy mayor or mayor. Does that mean there could be three people from Carterton?
No, what, in our discussions with the other councils, just to try and get a feel for, because really and as is in this report, it's essential that the members of the working group are determined to drive a result and not just be passengers, because this is a big piece of work. And in order to give it the mana and the leadership and authority around the council table in discussions, we believe it should be mayor or deputy mayor. As the report says, it's also generally agreed that to give the mayors a little bit of distance from these sort of discussions for political expediency, deputy mayor is certainly the way we're heading. So it would be mayor/deputy mayor plus one other.
Okay. Yep. So the mayor and the deputy are still classified as councillors,
right,
even though they're mayor and deputy. Okay. That's where the might have.
Okay, any other questions?
Good.
Okay, we're all happy with this. That's great. Now, Councillor Cretney's clearly got somewhere else to be. So we've got four recommendations. Is everybody happy that I put those all in block? Okay. In doing so, I'll put all those recommendations in block. One, that we received the report. Two, that Deputy Mayor Dale Williams and Councillor Robin Cherry-Campbell be appointed to the working group. Three, noting the expansion of the working group will seek to include representatives from both Wairarapa iwi. And four, notes that the Future of Local Government Working Group will aim to deliver final recommendations for inclusion as part of Wairarapa Council's 2433 LTP consultation documents.
Governance group, not government.
Governance, sorry, I beg your pardon. Thank you for pulling me up. Councillor Cretney's moved that, seconded by Councillor Gallen. You got your name and dispatches, thank you. Okay, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you, team. Okay, the last item is exclusion of public, page 173. The reasons for such are there. Moved by Councillor Ayling, Councillor Newman. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, we'll wait till security throws out Mr. Pallister. Thank you, Stephen.